The Kingdom of Qocho, also called the Idiqut state, was a Uyghur state created during 856 to 866 and centered in Qocho, Jimsar County, Hami City, and Kucha. Qocho served as its winter capital with Beshbaliq its summer capital. This Uyghur kingdom played a vital role in the Turkification of Xinjiang. The Yenisei Kirghiz had driven the people of the Uyghur Khaganate into Turfan establishment. Chinese, Turkish, Tocharian, and Iranian peoples were assimilated into the Uyghur Kingdom of Qocho. Chinese were among the population of Qocho. The Tang rule over Qocho and Turfan and Buddhism left a lasting legacy upon the Kingdom of Qocho, with the Tang presented names remaining on the more than 50 Buddhist temples, with Emperor Taizong of Tang's edicts stored in the Imperial Writings Tower, and Chinese dictionaries like Jingyun, Yuyun, Tangyun, and Dazangjing stored inside the Buddhist temples, and Persian monks also maintained a Manichaean temple in the kingdom. The Persian Hurrad al-Alam uses the name Chinese town to call Qocho the capital city. The Uyghurs of Qocho continued to produce the Chinese Qian rhyme dictionary and developed their own pronunciations of Chinese characters, left over from the Tang influence over the area. The modern Uyghur linguist Abdurrashid Jacob pointed out that the Turfan Uyghur Buddhists studied the Chinese language and used Chinese books like the 1,000-character classic and Qian, and it was written that in Qocho city were more than 50 monasteries, all titles of which are granted by the emperors of the Tang dynasty, which keep many Buddhist texts as the Tripitaka, Tangyun, Yupuin, Jingyin, etc. In Central Asia, the Uyghurs viewed the Chinese script as very prestigious, so when they developed the Old Uyghur alphabet, based on the Syriac script, they deliberately switched it to vertical like Chinese writing from its original horizontal position in Syriac. Professor James A. Millward described the original Uyghurs as physically Mongoloid, giving as an example the images of Uyghur patrons of Buddhism in Beshbaliq, Temple 9, until they began to mix with the Tarim Basin's original Eastern Iranian inhabitants. Buddhist Uyghurs created the Beshbaliq murals. Besides the jihad against Tushan, the Uyghur Kingdom was also subjected to jihad, in which Buddhist temples were razed and Islam spread by the Khaganate ruler Sultan Sati Bufra Khan. The Compendium of the Turkish Dialects by Kashgari included among the infidels the Uyghurs. It was written, just as the thorn should be cut at its root, so the Uyghurs should be struck on the eye, by Kashgari, who viewed them as untrustworthy and noted that Muslim Turks used the derogatory name Tat against the Buddhist Uyghurs, whom Kashgari described as infidels. The identities of Buddhist and Uyghur were intertwined with each other. The Buddhist Uyghurs were subjected to an attack by the Muslim Turks, and this was described in Mahmud Kashgari's work. Mahmud Kashgari's works contained poetry, stanzas and verses which described fighting between Buddhist Uyghurs and Muslim Khaganate. Uyghur Buddhist temples were desecrated and Uyghur cities were raided, and Mingtalak province across the river Ili was the target of the conquest against the Buddhist Uyghur by the Muslim Khaganate, as described in 5 to 6 stanzas of Kashgari's work. Mahmud Kashgari's 3 Turkish verse cycles are recorded in order in the Irtish Valley. A defeat inflicted on infidel tribes at the hands of the Khaganate. Secondly, the Buddhist Uyghurs being attacked by the Muslim Turks. And finally, a defeat inflicted upon a city between Tangut and China, Khatun Sini, at the hands of the Tangut Khan. Mahmud Kashgari insulted the Uyghur Buddhists as Uyghur dogs and called them tats, which referred to the Uyghur infidels, according to the Tusi in Tagma, while other Turks called Persians tat. While Kashgari displayed a different attitude towards the Turks' diviners' beliefs and national customs, he expressed towards Buddhism a hatred in his divan, where he wrote the verse cycle on the war against Uyghur Buddhists. Buddhist origin words like Toyin and Burzana-Furzan had negative connotations to Muslim Turks. The wars against the Buddhist, shamanist, and Manichaean Uyghurs were considered a jihad by the Khaganates. Islam was the enemy of the Christian and Buddhist Turfan Uyghur Kingdom. The imams and soldiers who died in the battles against the Uyghur Buddhists and Khotan Buddhist Kingdom during the Tarim Basin's Islamification at the hands of the Khaganates are revered as saints. It was possible the Muslims drove some Uyghur Buddhist monks towards taking asylum in the Western Shia dynasty. Mongol rule. Alans were recruited into the Mongol forces with one unit called Right Aland Guard, which was combined with recently surrendered soldiers, Mongols, and Chinese soldiers stationed in the area of the former Kingdom of Qocho, and in Beshbaliq the Mongols established a Chinese military colony led by Chinese General Qi Kongzhi. The kingdom was a Buddhist state with both state-sponsored Mahayana Buddhism and Manichaeism, and was a center of Uyghur culture. The Uyghurs sponsored the construction of many of the temple caves in what is now Beshbaliq Thousand Buddha Caves. They abandoned the old Turkic alphabet and adopted and modified the Sogdian alphabet, which later came to be known as the Old Uyghur alphabet. The Idiquts ruled independently until they became a vassal state of the Karakitai. In 1209, the Kara-Kaya ruler Borchak-Tikan declared his allegiance to the Mongols under Genghis Khan, and the kingdom existed as a vassal state until 1335. After submitting to the Mongols, the Uyghurs went into the service of the Mongol rulers as bureaucrats, providing the expertise that the initially illiterate nomads lacked. Qocho continued to exist as a vassal to the Mongols of the Yuan dynasty, and were allied to the Yuan against the Chagatai Khanate. When the Mongols placed the Uyghurs of the Kingdom of Qocho over the Koreans at the court, the Korean king objected. Then the Mongol Emperor Kublai Khan rebuked the Korean king, saying that the Uyghur king of Qocho was ranked higher than the Kalakara Khanate ruler, who in turn was ranked higher than the Korean king, who was ranked last. Because the Uyghurs surrendered to the Mongols first, the Kalaks surrendered after the Uyghurs, and the Koreans surrendered last, and that the Uyghurs surrendered peacefully without violently resisting conquest by Muslim Chagatais. The Buddhist Uyghurs of the Kingdom of Qocho and Turfan were converted to Islam by conquest during a ghazar at the hands of the Muslim Chagatai. Khizd-Qwaja. Qocho and Turfan were viewed as part of Khite, which was a name for China. The 1390s war by Khizr Khojas against the Uyghurs of Qocho is also considered a jihad. As a consequence of the jihad, the religion of Islam was forced on Qocho, and this resulted in the city of Goa being abandoned. The Mujahideen of the Islamic Chagatai Khanate conquered the Uyghur, and Hami was purged of the Buddhist religion, which was replaced with Islam. The Islamic conversion forced on the Buddhist Hami state was the final event in the Islamization. After being converted to Islam, the descendants of the previously Buddhist Uyghurs in Turfan failed to retain memory of their ancestral legacy and falsely believed that the infidel Kalmucks were the ones who built Buddhist monuments in their area. Buddhist influences still remain among the Turfan Muslims, since Islam reached them much after Al-Tashar. Personal names of un-Islamic Old Uyghur origin are still used in Kumal and Turfan, while people in Al-Tashar use mostly Islamic names of Persian and Arabic origin. Buddhist murals at the Beshbaliq Thousand Buddha Caves were damaged by local Muslim population whose religion prescribed figurative images of sentient beings. The eyes and mouths in particular were often gouged out. Pieces of murals were also broken off for use as fertilizer by the locals. The Uyghurs of Taoyuan of the remnants of Uyghurs from Turfan from the Kingdom of Qocho. Images of Buddhist and Manichaean Uyghurs.